So today we will see the characteristics of poetry, and then I will shift over to grammar. Okay, first few minutes we will see the PPTs, which are all the what is the definition of a poetry, how does it make up, and all those things. So I think most of it, what is given there, those characteristics we have covered yesterday, and I expect you to volunteer to read out my PPTs. I don't mind doing it for you, but I like you doing it, isn't it? So I'll share my screen and show my PPTs on poetry. What are the characteristics? What is the procedure in teaching poetry? Okay. What is the definition of poetry? All those things, all those PPTs yesterday, I didn't display it to you because I first wanted you to learn the way in which we are going to do the poetry. So today we will first see that and then go to grammar part. Shall we proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Almost all of them have come in. 11 of them are here, excluding myself and Sunaina ma'am. So, you can see my screen now.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So first is teaching of poetry. So how to go about teaching poetry? Can one of you take turns and read the introduction?
Okay, ma'am. Yes, shall I, ma'am?
Yes, one.
Yes,
Introduction. Introduction. Poetry and prose reveal the glimpses of English literature. Teaching of prose is an intensive study of language, structures, and vocabulary. It develops language ability of the students, where poetry is that part of language which is used for getting pleasure and enjoyment. Poetry is a thing of beauty and a joy forever. Poetry is a thing of beauty, beauty of thought, and beauty of form, mood, and feeling. Teaching poetry leads to an all-around development of the whole personality of people, particularly the emotional, imaginative, intellectual, aesthetic, and intuitive side. Definition of poetry.
One
Poetry is
minute, Bharati. Thank you.
yes, ma'am. Okay.
See, the last point is what we did yesterday. If you take all-round development of the whole personality of pupils, particularly emotionally. So some of you were very attached and you talked about what happened to you, then how we were imaginative. That sir told about, we were thinking of when about mothers, what a lovely picture to paint. He brought in his own idea about how mother sacrifices and what all she does and other things. So it is our own creation. See, it is our own perception of poetry, because poetry does not have, I told you, it has a diverse ideas we can get from poetry. So intellectually also, intelligently, aesthetic, of course, Sunaina ma'am told you that women, how we generally have a flair for beauty and whatever we look into and all those things. And intuitive sides is which arouses your creative thinking. So all these things we saw in our yesterday's poem, The Trees. Yes, continue, ma'am.
Definition of poetry. Poetry is sound than sight. It appeals principally to the ear and heard than eye. It is not so much seen but heard. Poetry can be caught but cannot be taught. Let us know what poetry is in the words of great scholars. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Wordsworth.
Yes. So if you see what is happening there, we have seen all those, isn't it? Whatever has to be done, that's what he says. Poetry cannot be actually taught by anybody. It is our ideas. We have to catch it.
you should feel it.
You have to feel it, your emotions. So yesterday, so each one of you perceived when your one line was given to you, it was your own ideas. Then only we consolidated it and put it together, thinking about the usefulness of trees and all those things. But when each one was given one line, your own perception or your own ideas came into it. So that's what is the beauty of poetry. We'll go to the next one. Now, what are the things that make it a poetry? Characteristics means, well, like how we have human characteristics. So same way, poetry also has a characteristics. Can anybody else read?
Yes, ma'am. May I proceed, ma'am? Characters of teaching poetry. Poetry is the best words in their best rhythmical order. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions. Poetry is the thing of beauty of form, beauty and ideas. It is the rhythmical creative form of composing feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Poetry has three aspects, that is rhythm, emotions, and imagination. The soul of literature is poetry. It helps for developing a healthy personality. It helps in developing aesthetic sense and pleasure in students. Yes, it helps. It develops understanding and imagination power of the students. It helps in creating love for English literature. Poetry is simple, sensuous, and appreciation of life. Poetry is more memorable than prose. Poetry is the clear picture of human life and his problems. It enriches the vocabulary and structure of the students. It brings variety in the English.
Thank you. So we would have noticed all these. It has a rhythm. It expresses our emotions. It helps us to give in our imagination, and it becomes the soul of life. We can never forget poetry. See, we might have read the prose lessons and other things, that ideas will be that the incidents will be fresh in your memory, but the lines itself of the poem will always remain in you, isn't it? Especially imagine the nursery rhymes. Even today we can recite.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yes,
nobody has to ask us to think about it and tell why, because it's all very catchy. So it really helps us. So that is why he's saying it is the soul of literature. The importance, the very important one, and it is a very clear picture of human life and the problems. So everything, even if you take our great Tirukural, couplets, we call them, in 2 lines, they express so much of ideas, whether it is philosophical, whether it is talking about nature, whether it is about beauty. For example, for these things, Keats and all wrote very small poems. But it was always such wonderful, beautiful poems that we have had. So, but on the other hand, if you take John Milton, he wrote on his blindness, and he wrote such a long, it is called like ballad. So it is a long poem, very long poem. On his blindness, it runs up to 5 to 10 sides. On his blindness, he wrote about. And even about, he wrote a poem on Trojan War, the Greek mythology. So poems can be in different ways. It can be some, like for example, even in 7th standard, if you have had this NCERT book, The Dad, Cat and the Tree. The story is depicted in form of a poem, and it runs to 4 sides. But our students felt it very simple because it was just narrating a incident, and a funny incident, a humorous incident. So poetry touches all kinds of our emotions. That's why he says it's a clear picture of human life and their problems. So whether you take it for a humor, whether you have a tragedy, whether you have whether you want to talk about appreciate the nature, or you want to touch upon any human values, all those things is brought out in the poetry. It doesn't mean it's not brought out in prose or a novel, but poetry is more appealing. But as somebody pointed out, poetry, you can appreciate it, but to understand the inner meaning, it is slightly tough. I think Muthu had written, no, Muthu Lakshmi? Yes. So I remember very well reading it. So as it is said, sometimes poetry, we perceive or we conceive the ideas in one way, but it may be another way. But doesn't matter. See, it is basic comprehension of us. So that is why in the exams also, if you see, students will be able to easily answer prose comprehension compared to poetry comprehension. Why do you think so? Because we may expect one particular answer from them to take it from the poetry, but the students will have different ideas. But in an exam, we have to keep a standard, a set, so that we mark them on it. Even though it's a language paper, we cannot give for all the answers. Yes, we keep a standard. Sometimes they may think from that point of view also. So that is not wrong. Talking about values, if you take Shakespeare's novels, dramas, plays, in Shakespeare's plays, he writes sonnets. Sonnets, it's also one form of poetry. So when I'm telling sonnets, I remember very well I was telling about human values are being brought out in the poem. In that one character named Portia, I think most of you have read the story of Merchant of Venice.
Yes,
How Antonio, Bassanio, and Portia are the three main characters here. Antonio gets into a problem, and Bassanio and his wife is Portia. How they try to save him from Shylock, who's a moneylender. So I'm just telling you just because I love this poem, Mercy. So he talks, Portia comes as a judge and she talks about mercy. That is written in form of a sonnet here.
Yes.
So the two lines I remember even today, which I have read way back in my college. Mercy is one that blesseth him who gives and blesseth him who gives and blesseth him who takes. So those two lines have so much of ideas in it that it is so easily understood. So that what did those two lines mean? Mercy, that is if you show kindness to others, God blesses you and the person who's receiving it. Blesseth him that gives and him that takes. So like these wonderful lines, you can remember even today. Why? Because it has touched your heart. It is something to do with your human values. But in prose, we may remember the incident. We may remember, say, just now I said about the story of Merchant of Venice. I was able to tell you the story, but the lines I may not be able to quote so well. But some lines of poetry really touches your heart. You never forget, because one thing, it is emotionally very touching. Another thing, it has got wonderful rhyme scheme and rhythm, and it has given food for our thought also. So all these things make a wonderful poetry for everybody to understand. So we'll next go into what are the aims of teaching poetry. Why should we teach poetry? What is the purpose of teaching poetry in a literature part? So we've already talked about it. We are just putting it as bullet points. Can anybody else read? Abhirami ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
She was saying yes. Right. Next, there's one more slide you can read.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Abhirami ma'am, go on.
Yes, ma'am. Aims of teaching poetry. To enable the peoples to enjoy and appreciate the poem and its style, to appreciate music, rhythm, and the beauty of the poem, to develop the understanding levels of the students, to make the students understand the thought and imagination contained in the poem, to train the emotion of the students.
Okay. So what we have enjoyed as language teachers while reading poetry, we should make the students enjoy that. So that is what the purpose of teaching poetry to students, our students is. It's not just to write question answers and things like that. They should appreciate and enjoy any piece of poetry. So that is the main important idea. And also to make them identify the musical note in that, the rhythm and beauty. So if you see in the nursery, from nursery classes, they are only first taught to recite or sing the songs, nursery rhymes. So then only they come to know the language as such. So what is so musical to their ears, it is so catchy for them. So in this context, we can even take up the advertisements which we are seeing visually nowadays. Why for us advertisements are more appealing than anything else? Because the tune in which it is done, the video in which we are seeing it, even without a video earlier in the radios also, when we used to listen to the advertisements were so catchy that easily we could take it up. We'll never forget. Because it has got the rhythm, the rhyme scheme.
The
That
slogan about the
Yes.
advertisement, it's
Yes.
very important.
the slogan is important, but why we are able to easily
Rhyme
catch it?
scheme only.
Because of the rhymes.
Rhyming
Rhyme
scheme.
scheme. See, for example, I can recite a very old for Amol, utterly butterly delicious. Why we are able to easily remember? Because utterly, butterly, all that sounds,
Time is
Rhyming word.
rhyming words, which makes it so easy for us to remember. So that's why we have to teach them poetry and make them, see, first ask them to understand the rhyme scheme. So they will be, which is very soothing to their ears. So then go on to tell them to how to appreciate the poem. Make them understand depending upon the level of the student. When it is nursery, we don't go and teach them what is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or Johnny, Johnny, Yes, Papa. All those things we are not going to teach them, make them understand. Only we teach them for rhyming level, for them to repeat, for the pronunciation, the phonetic use. We are not going to teach them, explain to them all those things in the nursery level. But when we come to a higher level, we start, that's what he says, to develop the understanding levels of the students. We have to give them according to their level for them to appreciate the poet. To make students understand the thought and imagination contained in the poem. As Muthu rightly pointed out, it is our teacher's duty to make it for them to understand the imagination and thought of the poet, to train the emotions of the students. So when they are reading poetry and other things, they themselves will feel very happy. So to train the emotions means they become so excited. When we talk about trees, we can tell them, look out of your window, what do you see? So all the schools have windows. From windows you may see some, most of the schools you may be able to see some greenery, some trees, some plants, something like that. Leave alone the traffic. So when you ask them to look at it, what immediately comes to, oh, how beautiful. And then they will be able to immediately narrate, ma'am, we saw this kind of trees there, ma'am, when we went to Ooty, when we went to Kodaikanal, or when we went to Simla, or when I went to my grandmother's place in the village, I went to my native, they will immediately be able to associate. That's where we are creating them to be creative, making them, making their imagination work. So these are the things which will, poetry will help us to make the students to train their emotions and their thoughts, their imagination. So in turn, what happens? Their vocabulary develops. They start to think in English, even though we are the second language, we are not native speakers of English. We unknowingly, involuntarily make them do all these things. Yes. So this is what the aim of teaching poetry is. Then what are the procedures? Some set procedure is given, but the procedure can differ from each one. It is our imagination, it is our creativity which is will make the how we are going to teach the students. But some set standards are given which we can easily follow. Like we have a lesson plan for everything to go, isn't it? So follow that lesson plan same way. So I thought, let me put up certain things which usually we have to follow when we are teaching poetry. Rest is left to your imagination. Okay, somebody else.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
I have one query, ma'am. Ma'am, in olden days, we have that memory poem. We are asked to memorize the 4 lines or 8 lines, and the same poem also will be asked in the question paper. But nowadays, CBSE is not encouraging to memorize.
Yes. Why? Because CBSE has now moved from rote learning to functional grammar, functional part of it.
Comprehend.
So, see, when what happens when they are reading for memory, they are not I won't say they're not understanding. The importance of the appreciation for the poetry is left out. When they are even, that's why when we say when they are going to recite a poem, we say, don't go for the sing-song method. When in nice nursery rhymes, we tell them, like that. But when they come to first standard, second standard, we'll say, leave that. That's not the way to recite a poem. Leave the sing-song method, even to for wish. Namaste, teachers.
Yes.
But singing will come.
Extended.
Yes,
What we
ma'am.
say, hey, stop all the sing-song method.
Yes.
Be correct. So that is the reason why I think CBSE must have done away with this kind
Oh.
of writing. But in Tamil, I think still they have it.
Yes, ma'am. Tamil they are doing.
Memory
Yes.
poem is there.
Yes,
Memory
but
poem.
they
Yeah,
are
ma'am.
there because to, I think, make them remember. And I think that is also only 4 lines, 8 lines, something like that.
Yes,
Not
yes.
the full poem also. So
Yes,
that
we
way,
only stopped. Yes, ma'am.
when I'm good, sorry, when I'm going to next proceed with grammar, I'm going to talk about why we have to be only functional. Because language is mainly for communication. Yes, we are not going to see whether you are using a verb, whether when you are forming a sentence, it should be grammatically correct. But what is the basic idea of any language? It is used for communication, isn't it? So till you are able to communicate to the person whom you are talking, it may be a lower level to a higher level or a very high level where you are the subordinate when you are addressing your heads, how polite you are being, all those things is what matters in a language. It is not the traditional one like earlier, like I stand to differ. For example, in metric and sorry if anybody is following metric and state board syllabus, grammar, because I have taught even in state board syllabus. I have had the experience of teaching matriculation school for 2 years. What they do, they literally mug up the definitions of grammar topics. And that is also asked as a question. But that type of grammar doesn't help anybody. We have to see that they are able to use it properly when they are talking, when they are writing. That is what is more important. No? So that's why CBSE also have traditional grammar function. So this must be the reason for also not having the memory poems for them to more. That's why we are having poetry comprehensions where they want them to read and understand more than just reciting it. Now, if we still continue to, we do have instead we have art integrated learning. In that we have poetry recitation competitions where we make them read Indian poets, or we tell them to take poetry that is not part of their syllabus, because we want them to learn more poems. So when they naturally take up other class poetry, we tell them, even if they're not able to find, okay, borrow higher class book, take a literature book from the higher class and memorize any one poem. So like this we do, so that they start to learn more number of poems. See, poems should not be read only for this purpose of writing in the exam. They should develop the habit of reading more poetry to help them to be more creative, more imaginative. That's why when we did such a simple poem of trees, I told you, we can ask them to add 2-3 more lines to what the poet has written. So she has written trees are for this, trees are for this. So children also can, students can write trees are for making furniture. So they can add up something, but maintain the rhyme scheme and the level of the lines, how many words are being used, all these things have to be followed. Once they have seen all those 15 lines, another 2 or 3 lines for them to add will also be a way we are going to help them to be more imaginative and creative. Yes, can you continue, read the procedure for steps for
Yes,
teaching
ma'am.
poetry? Yes,
Shall I, ma'am?
yes, sure, go on.
Lakshmi? Yes, ma'am. Procedures and steps of teaching poetry. No uniform method can be laid down for teaching of poetry. Each poem has to be treated individual. So a good teacher has to make plans his lesson well before he goes to the classroom. Planning lesson is one of the vital pre-action of a teacher to solve the problems that he may have faced in the class. Not only planning helps the teacher to solve his classroom problem, but also it helps in making our teaching more interesting and effective. A poem should be seen as a whole and not in part. While teaching poetry, teachers should be sparing of explanation as it is usually done by our language teachers. According to Max Eastman, a successful poetry lesson should leave the pupil with some insight into the delight or beauty that is portrayed. The steps involved in teaching poetry can be enumerated as under: step 1, objective; step 2, preparation; step 3, presentation; step 4, assignment; step 5, blackboard work.
Yes. So it is something like same like the steps are same like what we did in prose. First, we have to know the learning objective. Then we have to go prepared to the class to make them. Then the third one is also presentation, how well we present it to students. Then what is the assignment, that is where the activity, the book back activities. Of course, we will be using the blackboard to explain to them. So the main important thing as pointed out by Max Eastman is, we should not too much teach poetry. We should allow some things for them to think on their own. Unless otherwise it is very difficult. Like for example, T.S. Eliot's poetries are, which is of a higher standard, which is actually given only for higher classes. So there it becomes too difficult. So line by line explanation is needed. Same way Wordsworth, some poetries like the Solitary Reaper. I do not know how many of you would have heard. I like certain poets. That's why I keep on repeatedly saying, sorry if I'm going little away from the topic. So certain poetries require the teacher's explanation a lot. But the poem that like we took it yesterday is quite a simple one. So we should allow the students to try to perceive their ideas, bring out ideas from the students. That is very important. So that's why he's saying what we should say, a teacher should be sparing of explanation as it is usually done by our language teachers. We have a tendency to keep on talking all the time, like I am being here monotonously talking to you. So like that, it should not happen. Poetry should be, we should elucidate from the students their ideas. Like how we did yesterday for poetry. We can have even different methods. See, like we can do it as groups. Divide the class into 5 groups. Ask them to give them, because if they're not able to do in a poetry, when we are not able to do line by line, we can give them 3 lines, like how we do for ERC or annotation. Ask them to take those 3 lines and the whole group. So one by one can help each other. If somebody is not very interactive, we can ask him to put in his inputs, but he may not be willing to talk. So, but he may be good in explaining to his peer. So involve them. So like that, we can make them into groups and ask them to do the explanation of the poetry. This is what will happen in another pedagogy of your CBSE is flipped classrooms. What is flipped classrooms? We are not the teachers. The students become the teachers. So we allot certain portions for the students to come and explain. We will be there at the back, come and explain. We usually do, I do not know, when I was a student, it used to happen during the Teachers' Day. We never used to have a holiday on Teachers' Day. That day, the students become teachers and they go and teach the lower classes. The teachers are given rest on the Teachers' Day. So like this kind of a thing is what we want to do it in the classroom itself. This is what is another pedagogy that is being asked by CBSE to be followed, is the flipped classrooms. So some portions of the lesson or poetry, make the students come and explain in front of the class. Ask them. So even if they make mistakes, let it be. We all learn from our mistakes, isn't it? So we'll help them to allow their ideas to be. Then the students themselves will point out, hey, this is not the point of view. The other one. It should have been this kind of answer. This should have been that. So they will have a wonderful rapport at that time. Interaction and discussion will go on in the classroom. So this is also we can do for explanation of simple poems like trees, vocation, where the children can bring out their own ideas. But some poetries which is little difficult, we have to naturally pitch in and we'll only have to explain it to them. Like for the wonderful words in 6th standard we have. Students will not be able to think how it is coming from their minds and how the ideas are brought in, and it is words which is them to bring out the ideas. Those things we cannot give it to the students to do flipped classroom. But on the other hand, in the 6th standard, the fair play, the story, something like a role play. Instead of role play, we can ask the students to come and teach for the students. A few of them. See, we always have a heterogeneous set of students in our classrooms, isn't it? Some of them is really good, we don't have to concentrate too much on. Then we have the mediocre students, then whom we have the star pupils. So what will happen when you ask the good student to do? The mediocre student and the star pupil will also get an idea and they will volunteer to come for the next lesson. They will prepare themselves well before, especially when it is story, nice things like even the trees that made the ashes that made the trees bloom. So that's our Taru's reward. These are all very simple stories. So we can ask them to enact in the class.
We can also have the supplementary readers.
Yes, supplementary readers, we can give it to them to go ahead. All the supplementary reader stories we can have flipped classroom. So in this way, what we are doing, we are making them, involving them, especially when if it is going to be an online or offline class, what they will do, they will come prepared for it. Because they want to teach before the students. So they want to do a good job. So when they do a good job, when their own students criticize, it registers in their mind very well. So for the same poetry reading, you can have like this, giving a single line, then we can make into groups, then we can have flipped classrooms. So many methodology we can follow. A few I have told you now. Yes, so it will poetry teaching will be more interesting for you and for the students hereafter.
Sure, ma'am.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Yes. So see, when we are talking, I was telling you about grammar that we are going to touch upon next time. So grammar is one thing that forms like a foundation in the house. It is there. See, in our house, we all put foundation underneath, but we are not able to see it. Can we see the foundation in our own houses? Whether it's an apartment, whether it is your independent house, that is different. But can we see the foundation? It is not at all visible, but it is there. That only holds the building, whichever building it may be. So like that, grammar is like a foundation for us. Especially in the formative years, we have to insist on using proper grammatically correct sentences. So when we do grammatically correct sentences, then they automatically develop the language skills or the communication skills. We need not tell them, read the definition, memorize by heart. What is a noun? Noun is a name of a place, person, or thing, or something. That and all is not needed at all. For noun, we can have a word game. Asking them to write name, place, animal, thing. We can have it in the class. Today we are all of you take a paper and pencil and start writing. We are going to play a word game. And I'll say start, stop. What letter you have said? K. Write name, word, name, place, the animal, thing. Immediately they will all write. We'll ask some student to call out what they have written. K for what they will write. K for some name. Kiran. Place, Kenya. Animal, kangaroo. Then, so object, kite. They would have written. Then we can ask 4 or 5 of them and say, see, these are all the naming words we have written. These are nouns. That's what CBSE wants us to do. CBSE does not want us to say all the definition, ask them to by heart, give examples, then say the kinds of nouns, all those things they don't want. Nowhere they will ask, write 5 common nouns, write 10 proper nouns, write 2 abstract nouns. Nowhere it will be asked like a question. You will only have to identify. In this word game itself, you can tell them what it is. See, when you are writing a name of a person or a place, that is belongs to that particular person. So it is a proper noun. But when I'm writing about a thing or an animal, when I say kangaroo, it does not, I'm not specifically telling one particular kangaroo. So it is becomes a common noun. Yes. So there are ways in which this is what CBSE wants us to teach grammar in this way. They don't want us definitions. Even though I'm going to share some PPTs, some slides about what is grammar and all those things, but that is just to like lay a basic foundation on which only they can build up all these things. See, you may think, ma'am, you're telling we'll have a word game. First standard will not know to play a word game. There we'll have to teach them, but not ask them to by heart the definitions. Practically, we have to show them. That's what is the aim of CBSE saying using grammar. So more of functional, not more. They want only functional grammar. That's why when Sunaina is going to deal with you for tomorrow about the question paper, she will tell you how we give less importance to the mark allotment will be only 10 marks for grammar. And that 10 marks also will be only functional grammar with multiple choices. I'm not going to go into detail about all those things. She will talk to you tomorrow about all those things. So why I'm saying I am going to share with you certain traditional things that which is going to be which is for teaching of grammar is essential, but we are not going to adapt this for evaluation purposes. Yes, just like how it has to be there for them to write proper sentences, whether it is going to be in prose, whether it is when they're writing their question answers, whether they have to understand their problem sums, statement sums, whether it is in maths, whether it is in social, everywhere, unless they are grammatically, they are sound, they will not be able to understand. So the meaning itself will change in so many examples I can cite about not writing proper sentences, proper grammatically correct sentences. When I use a different tense, when I use different prepositions, the meaning completely changes. You have to be here on time. When I say on time, I expect you to be there. I have to be in the station by this time. When I say that, it is not that by this time. There is a difference between by this time and by on time. So simple preposition changes, but the meaning also changes. So for this only, knowingly or involuntarily, unknowingly, we'll have to imbibe in them the basic grammar rules for them to easily then write proper sentences. Not only getting marks in grammar part of the question paper. When grammar is not taught to them correctly, they will not be able to write essays, writing skills. It is very difficult to develop their writing skills unless otherwise they are strong in their grammar. Because whatever said and done, English is a language is for communication. But we do test them on their writing skills. We allot more marks for their writing skills, for their writing their literature, poetry, detailed answer, for everything. They have to write. How they will write without knowing grammar? Is it possible? I don't think so. So that is why we have done away with memorizing. That's why we have having HOTS, questions HOTS, because we don't have to give them only a set of questions and ask them to memorize and come and vomit it in the class, in the exam. That's not the idea. Even the questions which is there in the book bag questions, we ensure in our school to frame it in a different way. Maybe Sunaina will deal with how to set for a higher level person, mediocre, and for the star pupil. So there our skills comes in. So our grammar has become strong. So we have to make our students' grammar so strong for them to understand and write the answer. They may know the answer, but they might have do not know to understand their question. Then how will they write the answer? So why understanding is not there? Because they have not had proper grammar, basic grammar. So we need to have basic grammar. We have to teach them. But while testing, we will not test them on like the definitions and things like that. So shall we start seeing what is grammar and then go to, I'm going to deal with the topic tenses today for you. Because that's a very simple and a very essential part of grammar. So I think I will deal with tenses for you today. But first we will see what are the characteristics, what are the, as usual, how we do for prose and poetry. What are the characteristics, what all makes up to make it a grammar. And then I have already talked to you about functional grammar. So we will do functional grammar when I'm teaching you tenses. So first let's see the PPT on grammar, okay? Is my screen visible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
So first we are going to teaching of grammar. I told you what is the essential need to teach grammar. So can I get a break? Somebody can read the introduction for me.
Shall I do it,
will do,
ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Shall I?
Yes, those who have already done for poetry, can somebody else who has not done it for prose can do this poetry?
Naveen Raj.
Yes, Naveen can.
Shall I, ma'am?
Yes, next you can go in order who has not already done it.
Language is a vehicle by which we communicate our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and experiences with each other, but grammar is considered as a machine by which that vehicle is set in motion. Grammar is a theory of language. It is the study of the organization of words into sentences. In the teaching, learning of a language, grammar occupies an important place. Grammar deals with the functions of words in a sentence. Every language has its own grammar. Knowledge of grammar is much more important for a second language learner than to a native speaker. It is therefore necessary for us, to whom English is a second language, to learn the grammar of the language.
See, the last 2 points are very important, which I didn't tell you. See, as native speakers, they know it. Like our mother tongue, I told you about how we learn our mother tongue from when we are in our mother's womb itself. Nobody in our mother tongue tells us this is past tense, this is present tense, this is future tense. We automatically, by listening to others, we understand it. Because we have been talking from our infant. As an infant also, we have started hearing it, even though we may not have started forming our language to talk in sentences. As an infant, we have been repeatedly hearing our parents talk, our neighbors talk, our relatives talk to us. So for the need for grammar is not there for the native speaker. He will know it automatically. But when we as second language learners, English as second language, we need to know the importance of grammar. And every language has its own grammar. See, in Tamil, there may be something. In Hindi, there may be something. In English, something. See, for a simple thing as letter writing, if you take. In English, we stick to everything on the left-hand side corner of the page. But in Tamil, they start something on the left-hand side and at the bottom, I do not know how many of you have come across. Many students do that in the paper. Tamil and Hindi, they write yours affectionately, your subscription part of it, only on the right-hand side corner. because in their language, whether it's Hindi or Tamil, these two languages, I know that they have taught them that it's to be written in the right hand side corner. So, but because they are writing in the right hand side corner, what is happening to English also, they tend to write. So that is why we should know the format. We should know the rules. It is very important for us to know it. Yes. So next we'll go to the next one. Definition of grammar. Who's going to read this? Kantimati ma'am, you will read? What happened?
May I read my
Yes, of course. Am I
Grammar
audible?
is the book.
Suddenly I look, all of you have gone out of your...
Shall I read?
Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go on. Please, please.
Can I start my
Yes, start ma'am. Kantimati ma'am, start.
definition of grammar? Grammar is a body of empirical rules which explain and regulates the structures of the sentences. Grammar is not a code of rules. It is like etiquette and table manner, a statement of conventions. It summarizes what is done by cultural peoples, and like etiquette, it is in state of constant change.
1 minute.
Grammar,
1 minute.
yes.
Thank you. So listen, see here, this is what I've been talking about, functional grammar. So grammar is something like it is not a code of rules, strict rules, but it is like an etiquette and table manners. What we do, etiquette and table manners is what, how do you sit, how do you talk, all those things. It keeps sometimes changing, isn't it? So that's what he says. So it depends on how the cultural people, or what in English people always call it as the gentleman's use, how they
We can
use the
say
language.
polite behavior also, ma'am. Polite behavior.
So that is not more taught, but observed and learned. So, and it also undergoes a constant change. That is very important. Yes, Kantimati ma'am, you can go on.
Grammar presents the facts of the language arranged under certain categories and deals only with what can be brought under general laws and stated in the form of general rules. All the above definitions of grammar concluded that grammar consists of certain rules that govern the system of language, language units, and structures by which we communicate with each other. Thus, the study of grammar can help us in communication. It is a system consisting of phonology, morphology, semantics, and syntax.
Yes. So this is the definition of grammar. That is, we have to use certain rules, and because to maintain the proper structure while writing a sentence. So certain structures are very essential for us. So for that we have a set rules which we follow. Yes, next we have the characteristics of grammar. Can somebody else read?
Shall I, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Characteristics of grammar. On the light of the above meaning and definitions, the grammar has the following characteristics. Grammar is the theory of language. It is the study of organization of words into sentences, which is based on certain rules. English grammar was developed and written on the basis of Latin grammar. Every grammar has its own grammatical norms. Grammar is a major component of language, which establishes the relationship between words. Grammar presents the facts and rules of the language arranged into certain categories and stated in the form of general rules. Grammar has not the code rules. It is like etiquette and table manners of speaking and writing a language. Grammar is the characteristics and specialistics of a language. It has been made in order to establish the rules and principles which are followed by the speakers and writers. Grammar is the system of consisting phonology, morphology, semantics, and syntax.
Grammar is the machine through which we transfer our ideas and feelings with each other. It is the linguistic ethic or norms which are used in conversation. It is the branch of linguistic science and analytical aspects of a language. Grammar is the set of formal pattern of arranging words of a language.
Yes. So certain points which we have already spoken is again repeated here, isn't it? Have you noticed? That's why I deleted that. For example, the etiquette part of it.
And table manners.
Table manners, which already we have talked about, is repeated here, the characteristics. So I'm just deleting some of it, which is already there. Then next we'll go on to the aims and objectives of teaching grammar.
Shall I read, ma'am?
Yes, go on.
Shall I, ma'am?
The aims of teaching grammar should be to make pupils think scientifically about language. One of the major aims of teaching grammar is to enable the students to speak grammatically. The teaching of grammar anticipates correct expression of the students. First point, to develop students' insight into the structures of English language. To develop a scientific attitude about the language. To enable the pupils to express their ideas logically and correctly in speech and writing. To teach grammar as a rule-governed behavior and not as mere rote learning. To enable the pupils to develop their understanding about the rules of English grammar through use and practice of its structures. To develop the students' mental abilities of reasoning and correct observation. To enable the students to assimilate the correct patterns of the language without rote memorization.
Okay. One important thing that I want to tell you, these are the objectives and aims, but we are not going to question you all these things in the answer paper for your question paper. So don't worry. I will share all the PPTs. This is just for you to have as a guide for you while you're teaching grammar. We are not going to question you on all these facts. Okay. Be rest assured. You will also be anything to do with functional only. We will be asking you in your question paper. Don't think, oh, ma'am is presenting so many slides about teaching characteristics. Nothing will be asked about all these things. Okay, in your question paper. This is for you to keep it as a ready reckoner, like a reference book for you. Okay, we are not going to question from you. So now I can see some of you smiling and giving a smile of satisfaction. Okay, so don't worry, this will not be question for you in the question paper. Because we also know, see, you're also on a holiday. So we just want you to understand, we want to just have an evaluation after every workshop or something to know whether what we have passed on to you has reached you. That is the basic idea. It is not the basic idea of testing line by line whether this sentence will be questioning you. Don't worry about all these things. This is just like your reference book for you. That's all. So I have gathered the points and put it as aims and objectives just for you to have as a reference, not for testing you. Okay. So when I'm saying about CBSE insisting on functional grammar, we will not test you and all these things. So you need not worry about it. So you can just feel relaxed and just follow what is being just read. That's it. Next, the advantages of teaching grammar. Can any one of you read, or you want me to read? I don't mind.
Can I read?
Yes, shall I, ma'am?
Yes, of course.
Advantages of teaching grammar. Language is a vehicle which helps us to transfer our ideas, feelings, thoughts, emotions, experiences, and knowledge from one to another. But grammar is the machine by which that vehicle is set in motion. So without the machine means grammar, the vehicle, So without the machine means grammar, the vehicle means language will not be in the motion. Some of the merits of the grammar are the following. Grammar is essential for correct and adequate expression of language. It is behind the logic of a language. Its teaching is essential to proceed from concrete to abstract. It gives an insight into the structure of language. It is a systemized knowledge of the language. Its importance in writing is unbeatable. It provides the criterion for judging the correctness of the language. It develops various mental abilities of the students. It helps in writing correctly. It helps in composition and translation works. It helps the students in mastery over the language.
So what are the ways, the advantages of teaching grammar? How does it help? So these are the things that generally about teaching of grammar I have given you. Okay, actual teaching, I'm going to start now only. Okay, so this teaching will be more functional. So I'm not going to teach as I'm teaching a student. So my next PPT, nobody need to read, but you are going to tell me what you have understood from that PPT. Okay, you can even put it in the chat box. I have not given any heading, nothing. What do you understand from this?
Yes.
You have had a look at it. You are able to understand something. So from this, what do you think that I'm going to teach you today? What do you think that I'm going to teach you?
Tenses.
Of
Yes,
course,
ma'am.
tenses. But before, where do we find out the tense? What denotes the tense?
Time.
Time.
Denotes the tense. But in which part of speech of in the language we will denote tense and time?
The
We have
timeline,
part of speech which denotes time for us.
ma'am, that timeline, ma'am. You mentioned the timeline present. The arrow mark shows now the past like
See,
that.
I said I'm going to teach tenses. You have all seen the timeline. It is denoting time. All that you said. But which part of speech we will identify the tense?
Verb.
Wonderful. I wanted. It is the verb which denotes tense.
Yes.
Verb that shows us the tense.
Yes.
Verb determines the time of action.
Yes.
So see the next PPT, you will understand. So tenses shows us time and action. So when I say the word action, then we will easily understand where will we identify the tense. Unless there is a verb in the sentence, it is not a sentence at all. It becomes a phrase. When there is a verb only, where there is a question of a tense arising at all, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
When there is a verb only, there is a question of tense. Without it, we cannot teach tense. But what does tense do? It acts, the verb acts both as showing the time of action and of course the action itself. They are all watching me. So actually the action of watching is also happening. Yes?
Time.
And when are they watching?
Right. Now.
Now.
At
It is
present.
happening. They are all watching me means it's happening now. So it is indicating both time and action. So to indicate time and action, tense, for that we need a verb in the sentence. Without verb, it is not possible. So what is our learning objective today? To help express ourselves correctly. The correct time where you are going to express yourself correctly. That is the main objective of us today. Help to communicate to people what we want, what we did, and what our plans are. Okay? What we want will be what tense?
Present tense.
Present tense.
What
Present tense.
will be past tense? What our plans are?
Future.
Future tense.
Future.
Yes. So these tenses, how it can be divided, I've just shown you a picture here. Picture or pictorial objectives. So tenses, first is the present tense, then I dealt with past, then future. So when I take these three tenses, each tense is subdivided into so many other. How? I have enlarged. Can you see it? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Simple,
So when I take present tense,
continuous,
you
perfect,
have
perfect,
totally 4 subdivisions there. Simple present, present continuous, present perfect, present.
Present perfect.
perfect, continuous.
So that is applicable for all the 4. All the 3, sorry. Past tense also same. Simple past,
Yes, sir.
past
Past
continuous,
continuous, past
past
perfect,
perfect,
past perfect, continuous.
Perfect condition.
future also it is. But in future alone, what is happening? I told you grammar undergoes a change often. Nowadays, in future, we are not using future
Future perfect
continuous.
Continue.
It has become redundant.
Yes, ma'am.
We have done away with it. So if you see, I do not know, our grammar books does not even indicate it is as future tense. It says words denoting future time.
Planning.
They have given the topic as future time. Why? Because some simple present tense can also indicate future tense. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
When we use the word to be,
To be
okay? Isn't it? In some present tense,
going to.
simple present,
Yes, yes.
she is
Plan
going to be
action in
a doctor.
present.
When I say she is going to be a doctor, actually going is a present tense. When you take the word going, verb going, it is present tense. But is it happening now? I will
No.
add
Future.
be to make
Future.
it as future tense.
Yeah,
It's a planned
He is
action.
going to be
will
a
happen.
doctor is a future tense.
Future
Yes,
tense.
ma'am.
So actual, our traditional type says it's future tense. That's why he said it is not future tense. Actually, going, if you take the verb, it is present tense. To be, when we added, it is indicating future time. So if you see, that is why I didn't show the pictorial diagram for past tense. Of course, it is there, all the 4. But for future, we are not having it. Nowadays, I told you, grammar undergoes a change. Earlier, when we were reading, it was all there. But nowadays, since it is not in vogue, since we are not using it at all, it has become redundant. So there, if you see the new edition textbooks of grammar will not have future perfect continuous. Okay. So shall I move to the next one? So how can I am representing this with an example? So simple present tense is I watch, continuous, I'm watching, I have watched. Okay, but from this, can we identify the structure of what is the present tense structure?
I watch.
First form of the verb.
No.
V1 verb.
Subject is verb alone.
Everything is verb only, but see,
V1 verb in the present.
V1.
I will show you what is the structure for this. If you show the structure to the students, they'll be easily able to identify. See, for the first one, simple present. What will be your structure? The root verb with or without yes. She watches, they like. Because singular will have yes, plural will not have yes.
Third person.
Yes, she plays in the garden, they play in the garden. Yes, singular will have yes, plural will not have yes. So the simple present tense structure will be root verb with or without
yes.
then
But in third person, yes comes, isn't it? In third person, he likes.
ah,
He, she, it. Will
he,
add
she,
yes.
it, yes, that is what I said, singular with or without s.
Correct only, ma'am.
No, whatever, see, whatever doubts you have, there is always you can clarify, nothing wrong. Why I showed that PPT, I wanted you to understand the structure. So when you give the structure to the children, and no need to ask them to by heart, ask them to write 2 or 3 times, or you can show a picture, put it up in the board so that it gets registered in their mind. However, they will be for having a grammar notebook. Tell them no need to by heart. Write once. When they write once itself, it is registered. In our days, everything they used to tell us, learn by writing. It is there, fully depicted in your memory. Like photographic memory, it will be there in your mind. Anything you write once, you can easily reproduce it, remember it anytime. So insist on your children writing the structure once. Tell them don't by heart. Because in CBSE, nothing to be by hearted, nothing to be memorized. But for them to understand, make them write the structure. So present continuous, am is are plus root verb plus ing. Example, I am writing. She is playing. They are singing. Then what will come for present perfect tense?
As
As or
As
have.
or have.
Past participle form of the verb.
Third form of verb.
Have gone to the theater. Sunita has bought a cycle. And in this context, you have to tell them what is a participle.
What?
The en form of the verb.
Yeah.
Like we can say how, take, took, taken. The participle table you can give them.
With 3 words.
Drive, drove, driven. Okay. Learn, learned, learned.
Learned.
With the T.
T.
With the T is your participle form.
Yes, sir.
But some don't change. Hear, heard, heard.
Heard.
No change in the participle form.
Cut.
Sleep, slept, slept. Keep, kept, kept only. Some, as she said, cut, put and all, no changes. Whether it is present tense, whether it is participle form, whether it is
No
past tense,
changes.
for everything it remains unchanged. So like this, we
Read
should
pronunciation only the difference.
yes, ma, something you
For
were
read. For
Read,
read, the
read.
pronunciation only
it's
we
only
have to
Spelling is the
differentiate.
same.
changes. And
Spelling
again,
is same.
see, again, you said pronunciation changes. But if you have seen nowadays BBC news readers, everywhere they are using the word only read.
Read.
Especially Americans, they don't read it as read. So certain things, that's what language is, an evolution. It keeps on evolving as days goes by. Even in the dictionary, every year or once in 10 years, extra words are included. So that's why I tell, we have to, language is one that keeps us all the time, we have to keep reading. We also have to keep updating ourselves.
Previously, used to say actor, actress, but
Yes,
now
nowadays, because profession for everybody, actor, very correct. They have done away with actress. Because doctor, doctress and all, we are not saying, no. So they said, why for actor alone we are having, let us have it as that profession, that artist is like actor, no actress.
and short form for Miss and Mrs. is MS only.
Yes, only, that's right.
And ma'am, even when we say cope, we sometimes say cope up with. It is only cope with.
Yes, cope
Now,
up with is wrong.
Cope up is wrong.
Up
I
is
also
not
realized it recently.
Yes, actually, cope up was an earlier phrasal verb.
Yeah. Now they've done away with
Verbs,
that.
now they have done away with it.
Yeah, now it's only cope
Because,
with. Yeah.
cope with, because earlier phrasal verbs means actually after the verb you have a preposition.
Oh.
So up was there. Cope is the verb, up was there. But they said nowadays we are only having it as cope. No cope up with. No two prepositions, only one preposition. Cope with. Okay. So these are the things that it keeps changing. So we have to keep reading as the changes happens. Or sometimes when the students tell, sometimes every time we cannot be abreast with them. So when they come up with it, we'll say, okay, we'll have to accept. Yes, I will just find out, let you know whether it's right or wrong. Go back, go to the staff room, inquire with your higher class teachers, or go to the Google, search for yourself whether this is done with. Then you come to it and come and accept it. See, we have to be always receptive to learning as language teachers, not only language teachers, any teacher for that matter, she has to be in touch with the books all the time. Because every day new things, whether you take science, new inventions are happening. New discoveries are happening. See, for even, you may think social science, nothing. No, for social science also new things are happening. For example, now with this Kiradi in Madurai, so many excavations are going on that will be added in history. So they also have to be reading. Maths and science, everyday changes are happening. Language, every day it is happening. So these things we have to keep, even for that matter, geography or social science teachers, new instruments have come to measure the weather, all those things, everything they have to keep informing the students. And same way, politically, when it comes to civics, political changes are happening. The rules and regulations which Ambedkar gave us, everything it keeps on updating. They are changing according to the times. So we also have to keep updating ourselves. Okay, now coming back to present perfect tense, I was telling you. So we went away from our topic, too much of talking. As usual, language teachers talking only. So present perfect tense, the structure is they have gone to the theater. Sunita has bought a bicycle. Then present perfect continuous, has or have plus been plus root verb plus ing. She has been working on this project. They have been watching TV. So these structures, if you give them and ask them to write once, they will never forget. They need not memorize. They will never forget how to change it into a continuous tense, how to change it to a perfect tense, how to change it to present perfect continuous. Or a simple, I have another PPT showing you for present tense like this. Ask them to do it for continuous tense. This is one way of doing it. See, present continuous. Somebody asked me for a third person, ma'am. So you bring in person also. What have you done? Is, he, she, it, verb plus ing. I am, verb plus ing. Then third person, they, you, we, are plus verb plus ing. So actually tomorrow's activity for you will be, for past tense, you are going to get me something like this, something innovative for past continuous tense.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay?
Sure,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Some
Definitely,
other
ma'am.
picture. This picture, no need. Some other picture which will be interesting for the students. Past continuous. What are the options you have? That
We
will
will
be
do,
your
ma'am.
tomorrow's activity. Okay.
Yeah.
So shall we
Yeah.
continue now?
Yes, ma'am.
So this way, these are the ways in which you can teach them. So I taught you how for present tense, what happened and what is the thing that we did for present, the three things. I have not here added present perfect continuous. If you notice, I am only having 3 here. Actually, the 4th column should have come.
I have been watching.
Yes, I have been watching. Isn't it? The 4th column is left out. I thought since I showed the structure, somebody will point out purposely, because this was something that I had taken from another PPT. I thought let the teachers point out the mistake to you. I thought somebody will point it out to me. That's why I did not show this PPT for long. I went off to the structure, thinking that anybody will point it out to me. Ma'am, in this, there is no perfect continuous tense.
Ma'am, I thought, ma'am,
We
I
thought
thought to
Already
say,
told, no, ma'am.
but for
It was
reason
not
only you did.
included.
See,
Yes, ma'am.
I
just
said
for an
I am
example, you
here
are
to
giving
always
thoughts like that.
accept.
ma'am.
Everything should be accepted, which is we have to be receptive. Even a smallest child in the class points out, we should understand. We
Yes,
should give it a thought. And we have to accept. See, next time going like this. So explanation part is come to that. So simple present tense, I watch something you do regularly. Even the habits, he goes for a walk daily, will be only in simple present tense. It can never be
Habitual
changed.
action.
Yes, habitual things.
neutral
The
truths
rabbit
also can
burrows,
be.
it's
Neutral truth, ma'am. The sun rises in the east.
yes, all will be in past, in present tense only, simple present.
Facts also.
Yes, facts, definitions, proverbs will all be in simple present. Now coming to continuous tense.
What
I
we are
am
doing
watching
at the moment.
something you are doing in the present moment. That
Moment.
action is going on.
At present, we are in the meeting.
Not
Yes,
finished.
at present you are in the
Continuing.
meeting. You are attending the meeting. Then present perfect will be something you have done that remains relevant currently. What
The
is
influence is going on at present.
That is recent actions we have completed. Sir.
no.
At present, completed action, but the influence of that action is continuing not present.
See, for
Ma'am,
example, when I am appreciating your your activities. Okay. So what you have done? You have done it yesterday itself. You have done a wonderful project. Yes.
Yes, sir.
You all have done a wonderful project, or you have all given a wonderful feedback.
I have completed my work.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Recently,
So
actions.
it has recently happened, but when I'm telling it today, it has got a relationship with what has happened. Yes,
Yes,
recent
yes.
past.
Recent past.
It has happened to the recent past is what your perfect tenses will come. So that is why if you see, even though has and have are present tense, so I can say I have a pen. It is simple present. She has 4 bags. I can use it separately also. This verb, I can use it as a simple present tense also. Only when it is added with the participle form.
Participle form. Yes, sir.
That
Come
to
under
past
perfect tense.
participle only.
I have completed.
Call it as our perfect tense.
Perfect tense.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So is present perfect, present tense clear the structures and this? Yes.
Ma'am. Clear,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Clear how to go about teaching to the students. So when the tenses are over, I have a story to be developed using the tenses. I will just show you how I have done it. See, this is also something like copied from Naveen's idea. You can fold it in those lines, which is there. Okay. Fold along the dotted lines to make double-sided cards. Paper, like flashcards you can use. And then ask the student to find the answer. See, the first one, if you fold it in, but it dash rain outside when Sam got out of the bed and looked out of the window.
Rains.
It was raining outside when Sam got out of the window and looked out of the bed and looked out of the window. Because here I have jumbled up all the tenses. Okay, so I don't want to show you now because there is a part of it all combined together. 1 minute, teacher. Sorry, I've got stuck in the my PPT is not moving. Sorry for the glitch. I'm not able to get my PPTs. Okay. So we have done. I don't want to start off past tense today. You want me to start past tense also today?
No.
You feel comfortable?
I feel hungry.
Huh? What happened, ma'am?
No, ma'am.
Abhirami, ma'am, you can be loud. Don't have any fear. We are not
No,
a student and teacher. We are all teachers.
Little bit the bell in stomach, it is
Oh,
going on.
okay. It has started ringing. Oh, good, good, good. Okay. So in Tamil, செவிக்கு உணவில்லா வயிற்றுக்கு உணவில்லாத போது செவிக்கு
உணவு கொடுக்கு.
உணவு கொடுக்க
போகாது, ma'am.
முடியாது. It is not possible.
Yeah, ma'am, but the class is interesting only, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So we will continue this tomorrow. And tomorrow I will make it little faster so that some of you have asked the doubts how to go about teaching classes also.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, some of you have asked me. So even that
Yes,
I have
ma'am.
prepared. So that also I'll try and finish it off tomorrow, both together, put together the past tense and future tense. And then this activity, I can give it as your home activity.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. So that we
Okay.
will not do the activity in class as such. I'll give it as a home activity for you so that we can touch upon classes also tomorrow. Since it's every day I'm leaving you at 1:10, I'm feeling very guilty.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. That's
So
okay.
but, that's why I stopped with present tense. I didn't, because past tense, if I start, surely it will go another 10 minutes at least. So see, I don't want to take away your lunch break. Natural. You see, it is very natural. It's human, our reflective, what to say, involuntary actions. These things, we can't help it. We have to.
Understood, ma'am.
Okay, we can.
Need to attend another meeting at 2 o'clock also.
That's what. That's why I'm telling. So I don't want to take away your lunch break, because I know some of you are attending 2 o'clock meeting also. So I'll give you the time. So we'll end for today. Only thing that I have given you activity is to do some picture representation of past tense, past continuous tense.
Continue.
Okay. I just want a pictorial representation of past continuous tense. Okay, teachers.
Okay, ma'am.
We call it a day today.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Namaste,
okay.
teachers. Today
Thank
I
you,
will
ma'am.
be sharing the PPT for you about poetry teaching. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
I think pros all of you have received in the WhatsApp group, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sunaina ma'am, is it taking, am I taking too long? Sunaina? Sunaina ma'am? Short trip is gonna go. Why don't you wear your shoes and go? Short is gonna get on the shoes. I want to just convey to Sunaina. Sunaina class.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I was
Sorry,
calling you,
ma'am.
but
I have to run for lunch. So I just did the final thing and yes, ma'am, tell me.
was it too long?
No,
Because
no, ma'am. Perfect. Now you're doing clauses tomorrow, no? That's all.
this grammar little bit, this tenses is there. I told both I will combine and
Clauses
use
tomorrow. Yeah.
clauses.
And this
Because
thing.
past tense and future tense I've not dealt with.
Yeah.
So I told them that I will do this little faster activities. They can do it at home. I told home.
Fine,
activity.
fine.
And I told I'll touch upon clauses tomorrow.
Okay.
Because
Done.
somebody asked for particularly for clauses, I thought I would.
Clauses only they've asked. Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
So
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll have to, because they need the thing for the next meeting, no?
Yeah.
Morning also, I went on till 11:15 and they called up then.
Oh.
They
No.
were asking so many questions.
They said they want to go for the 2:00 meeting like Cyril and Bharati and all there.
Yeah. They all attend. No, that's why. Yeah.
And they were so, and Abhirami was telling, ma'am, stomach is doing good. Lunchtime.
I know, lunchtime for them. Correct.
Yeah, very natural. You can be feel free to talk to me, I said.
Correct. Yeah.
So I told I'll finish with present tense today.
Correct. Okay, ma'am, I'll leave then.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was looking to make you leave and then.
Yeah, I'll leave, ma'am. 1 second. Thank you.